Let's have a Q&A. So, any questions?
Anything. Work related.
Yeah, anything work related.
Yes.
Don't know how much we were on that, but to manage RabbitMQ queues, how much of your users do need to understand that it's RabbitMQ in the bottom, and hey, the queue is full and we have problems and so on. I feel that we have had that. I hear in the corridor the RabbitMQ was down, but I don't even know where I can find it. I've never seen the Rabbit.
Is that a question to?
Yes, to companies that really use this.
Yeah.
Do your users, not the newbie users, not the guru, but the middle developers, what do they need to understand?
I mean, I found that people find RabbitMQ surprisingly difficult to use, actually. Both the concepts and I think it seems like the libraries, either the protocol or the libraries itself, it gets pretty hard to use, I found. So we have in multiple services have had issues with if the broker disconnects, they won't reconnect properly, and we see large queue growth. And those are services written by different people in different languages. So there's something rotten that causes this problem. But in terms of understanding, I mean, it isn't. Education is needed, I think. People don't understand asynchronous messaging out of the box. They don't automatically understand the need for acknowledging messages and so on, and how to use it effectively and efficiently. So it's probably a wise idea to have some kind of education for teams who are going to start using this.
Okay, well, more about the normal developers, not the infrastructure developers, but the normal developers. Do they know about that there's a queue system underneath, or is that just hidden? It just works.
It just should work. Yeah. No, but we get complaints sometimes about lost events. That's the normal way. People looking at,
and it's usually BS, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sure.
No, but people looking at the results of what should be promoted by events, they see that, well, it seems that we have lost events here, but it's often then about the consumers on the queues. If you register as a consumer on the queue, you should also read those messages and you should acknowledge them, and not just let them lay around there, because then they will stay and then the queue will grow, and all of a sudden Rabbit will want to die or will have a problem at least. So that's often what happens when people complain about lost events. But yeah, so people are aware, I think, that events are set in our systems, and they blame events often.
Yeah, maybe with a similar question, but you mentioned RabbitMQ all the time, but I mean, if you look at it, the Eiffel is completely disconnected from RabbitMQ. And yeah, what we did when we started using Eiffel messages was basically to pull them from the RabbitMQ broker that we eventually got access to, and then push them into our Kafka server for messaging. How common is that, and how much supported is that from the Eiffel community? Or you seem to kind of say RabbitMQ is the way to go, but
no, it's just that's the way we go. But if you choose another broker, that's totally fine. The reason why you might want to choose RabbitMQ is simply because all the existing services that people have made assume RabbitMQ. But there is, as you say, the protocol doesn't care at all, completely agnostic. And you could as it seems you have done, set up like a bridge between the two, and that's totally fine. I don't have any opinions at all about that.
Yeah, we found an open source project that did just that actually, so we kind of felt we were not alone.
No, certainly not.
So yeah, if we look at the landscape of tools or solutions for Eiffel, those that are aware of the infrastructure, I would say all of them assume it's RabbitMQ. But that's because Ericsson uses RabbitMQ, Access uses RabbitMQ, and no one else has really contributed any solutions to the community, to the landscape. So that's the reason why it's as it is.
Yeah, we used RabbitMQ for other purposes before we used, so it was no reason to use anything else.
Mm-hmm. Matthias will talk quite a lot, or some at least, about the comparison between RabbitMQ and Kafka tomorrow on the session.
And some other RabbitMQ specific topics. So
yeah. We will get into that more tomorrow.
I can say as well that when I was at Ericsson, end users, the developers of the hardware, they didn't know shit. Quite frankly, they didn't know anything about they saw red, green, yellow. That's it. So it was only us CI/CD who worked on CI/CD who actually saw the missing events or knew what even Eiffel or RabbitMQ was at that point. But the end users, that at the end of the line, the developers of the hardware, they didn't know anything. Nothing about Eiffel, or they didn't need to. They had their own worries to focus on.
Was it good or bad?
Good, because then they gave us our actual defined errors that we had defined within our infrastructure, within our situation.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it was actually good because whenever you start involving users in more advanced topics, in more advanced of the Eiffel or the RabbitMQ, they're going to come with a lot of more support questions, a lot of things that are difficult to explain or takes more time to explain. That's why you have abstraction layers on top of it. So having the user talk about it, sure, if they're interested, cool. But at the end of the day, it would just increase a lot of support if they knew that much, let's say. So we kept it on an abstraction layer. So have instead of having just, oh, this is an event, we show a dashboard. This is a stage that now the flow has gone through. For example, it could be a test case, could be artifact delivery, but we have our own kind of dashboard for it, an abstraction layer on top. Because the hardware developers, they have so much other things to think about that isn't involving the CI/CD.
So not everyone is excited by asynchronous messaging. And
Oh no!
No, okay.
Unless you're talking about asynchronous
My
messaging.
mind's blown. Yes, thank you.
Unless you're talking about Google Protobuf inside the radio systems, then you can get them excited. But no.
Well, we talked about that before. We had a proposal that we should have something powered by Eiffel or something in the bottom of the visualization, folio commit or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a big risk of doing that then, because people will complain on Eiffel then if the visualization doesn't work. But anyway.
I mean, that's classic. If anything in Jenkins fails, it's like, oh, it's Jenkins' fault. No, it's your code that's not compiling.
Far too accurate.
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I'm a developer of software as a loop in Volvo, and right now there's a huge migration progress towards Eiffel, and before that we were using also some solution for messaging. And what I am as a person who needs to use it every day for tracing the issues and seeing how it goes. I'm caring about interface for the user, because before what we usually needed to do, open Jenkins build and see what was triggered and go by that link and see what is the next build in the chain. And it was not that much user friendly, I would say. Of course, it is traceable, yes, technically. I really wonder about the interface
you mentioned in the very beginning. Is it open source? Can we use it? Yeah, let's start with this.
The interface I showed in
Yeah, so the purpose is there is a root build that triggers all the builds,
Right.
and then yeah, it's like a proper chain from the C in Eiffel. Is it something we can use?
Not in Volvo, no, fortunately. It's early. I don't think there's really any hurdle against open sourcing it, I think. I don't think we have any immediate plans for it either. But it's, I think if we do it right, it would be very, very useful, I think. So I can certainly take it back and talk to the people working with it. I don't think it's, I don't think we're going to have to need to build into it any knowledge about our systems. I mean, that hopefully we shouldn't have to do that. In that case, it should be completely generic. And I think our idea is to have it both available as a standalone web application where you can just search for activities or whatever, and it doesn't just standalone. And we're also going to build it into our more integration workflow web application. That would not make sense to open source, but it's not going to be only built into it. It's going to be available standalone as well, I think. So I do hope we can open source it.
Yeah, right. Just because really what we will need to have some interface for it. So it would be very good not to re-implement visibility, to be honest. It would be very good to read. Yeah, thank you.
If you want to have more contributors, it's a perfect idea.
Yeah.
I think other teams are interested in it as well.
So the only visualization view that exists is the one I'm pointing at there, the Eiffel. I'm not sure you want to mention anything about what it is and what it can.
If I remember correctly, that was wasn't it the Gothenburg students who made this? Yes. So yeah, it's not terribly useful in practice, but it's pointing away from my mouth so loud. I'm just whispering here. Yeah, it was a student project where they just visualized all the events. I think you can apply filters, but just visualizing all the events in like a stream, and you could click them and see what was inside. But it was more an exercise of, can we visualize millions of events in a small process or something like that. So it's an interesting exercise, but we're not running it anymore. It's just a fun thing.
And we have numbers of visualizations in Ericsson that are based or powered by Eiffel, but none of them open source. There's one that is very generic that I would say would be suitable for anyone working open source outside or working with Eiffel. That is not at all connected to an Ericsson business logic, but that is not made open source due to resource and other reasons. Then we have a lot of proprietary Ericsson-specific solutions. I have long wanted to have a generic follow your commit or something, but so far no time to provide it, and no one has it.
Right. Any more questions? Anders?
It's not a long question, but Eiffel Intelligence, will you talk about that later, or can you explain a little bit on what it is and what it does?
Yeah. We will not talk about Eiffel Intelligence such. It will be mentioned tomorrow on the presentation on Eiffel Collector, because Eiffel Collector is a new take on the same use case, or at least part of the same use case. Eiffel Intelligence is quite a complex service, but the intention there is anyway to make it simple for the users that want to make use of an aggregated view of the events. So what it does is that it can list to events, and then it can find other events that are related to that event upstream, that is happened earlier, that are linked. And then it can also sit there waiting for any downstream events that would be able to come and link to this first triggering event. So that's the aggregation part of it, and then there's the subscription part of it that where you can subscribe to a certain state of this event chain. So, for example, if you have an artifact, you want to know whenever a new artifact has been created that has also passed a certain confidence level. Then you can set up a subscription for that in your Eiffel Intelligence instance. Say, I want to know when the new strawberry has been released with this specific confidence on its maturity. And then I want to trigger my internal ice cream machine to build such ice creams with a strawberry. So that's what Eiffel Intelligence can do. Eiffel Collector can do more or less the same thing. We use it internally in Ericsson, the Eiffel Intelligence now. We will replace actually most of it with Eiffel Collector soon, but Eiffel Collector is an internal thing still. Yeah.
Right? Any more? No? Okay. Should we go for the wrap up then? Or should we have a break and then a wrap up? Thanks. Thank you so much for all the presentations for today. It has been really fruitful, I think. A lot of thoughts and a lot of ideas has popped up. I feel that we at Volvo need to be better at contributing to this because we're starting to work with it now. And also utilizing each other much more. And I think we have a task at Volvo to really do it together because we are also so many people. So interesting day. For the ones that will be have been only here today, I'm glad that you joined and thank you so much. And we see each other tomorrow, the rest of you. Thanks.